Well, hi and welcome back to The Mariner with me, Chris Stanmore-Major. Well, you join me now mid-Atlantic, and here I am struggling with that big Cuban fibre mainsail we put to one side in Cherbourg, favouring instead the 3DL North sail. Unfortunately, with 12 years on the clock, that 3DL sail was not able to weather the last squall that we had coming out of Falmouth and delaminated in 25 knots. I've now got to get this Cuban fibre sail, nearly 200 kilos, 30 feet on the foot, 100 feet on the luff. We've got to get it onto the boat while we're in this quiet patch and get back underway with speed to Nova Scotia. So a few thoughts from me here, a few ideas, show you around the job, and have a little chat in the middle Atlantic.
I think you get the idea. It's pretty bloody heavy, eh? For me, this is a major watershed, this moment, because I have been here before with this sail. I've unrolled it when we were in Cherbourg and then realized there was no gear on it and put it away again. To be back at that point is kind of back at a 0 point on the axis, okay? We went all the way one way with one sail, and then we come all the way back, and now we're going to go all the way the other way with the other sail. I gotta say, this sail makes me very nervous because that's like kind of a funny thing to say, but it does. It makes me nervous because all we gotta do is get this from here to there, right? Seems super easy. It's not super easy. What I have to do now, absolutely crucially, is I've got to get the gear onto the sail, I got to get the battens into it, and I got to get it up the rig before this weather stops. Because if I stop the boat right now, I can have virtually zero wind, and I can hoist this up the rig, and then I hoist a bit, attach, hoist a bit, attach, hoist a bit, attach. I'll end up with virtually a full mainsail. It'll all be attached. I drop it back down, settle in the reef, and we're good to go. Trying to do this in heavy weather, you'd have to lift this entire bundle with the battens in onto the boom, and then try and get all that weight lined up and whatever, so those little pins will go in and get the battens in. It would be virtually impossible. So I say, when I look at this sail, I'm very respectful of how much weight it is. If it was wet, it'd be heavier. If it would be windy, it'd be impossible. If it went in the ocean, I don't know if you get it back out. Like, I've had very heavy sails in the ocean before, but this is an order of magnitude beyond that. So very respectful of it. But yeah, the pressing need now, this is obviously the center of something, and we've seen the wind drop steadily through from about 1 o'clock in the morning till about 8 this morning. It's now dead flat. We're motoring at 3 or 4 knots. We'll be on the other side of it, I bet, by dinner time, by evening dinner. Not dinner time in the lunchtime, I mean dinner time in the evening time, at tea time. English people will get that more than North American people, I think, but by the next major meal, this guy's got to be up and connected and be in the bag ready for when the breeze comes back. The good thing is that right now, the proportional loss in speed is at its minimal. If we were trying to do this in heavy weather where we should be doing 10 or 12 knots, we'd lose 10, 11 knots out of the equation, right? Certainly when we stop, or if we were meant to be doing 12 knots and we were just pushing along like we were last night with 5 or 6 knots with the headsails up, then we've lost 50% of our speed. But as it is right now, even with all the sails up, we'd still only be ghosting along at 6, and we're doing 4 with the engine. So right now, proportional loss of speed is at its best, but we don't want the wind to come back. It's going to make the job harder, and the proportional losses will be much greater. So we got to get this done pronto de monto. Oh, can you hear that? Can you hear that? Oh, I don't know if the camera picks that up. People think I'm mad when I do this at sea. I bet you there are dolphins around the boat. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Look, oh, he's a really white one. There we go, look. I could hear them through the hull. And I think sometimes it's because the boats that we drive are Kevlar and carbon, and they incredibly, sonar is the right word, but they're incredibly tight. They're incredibly hard and tense shells, so they transmit sound really, really well. Look, I don't know if it's right or not, but one of my mentors, Sandy Marr, an incredible sailor, mariner, navigator, and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Hey Sandy, hi Eleanor. He told me they love it when you whistle to them. If Sandy says they love it, they love it. What I have noticed is that if you've got dolphins sort of around the boat and then you start whistling, or if you've got a flute or something like that, they'll stay with the boat or they'll increase their activity up. Look at that. And I'm trying to imagine what it's like for them underwater and what they can see and what they're doing. And I don't think they're doing this because they're, it's feeding activity or because it's part of their instinct to follow boats. I think they're doing it because they're having fun. And it's very hard to watch other mammals having fun and not have a little smile yourself. And I think that's what you always got to remember about problems, whether it's a mainsail or problems at home or whatever, is that whatever your problem is, there's probably a dolphin somewhere underneath it swimming around. And if you just take time to have a look at the dolphins that are swimming around your problems, the problem themselves melt away. So there we go, that's our deep philosophical moment for the day. All problems have a dolphin swimming under them. You've just got to listen through the hull of your problem. Listen to the sound of the dolphins. Oh. Just getting to the end of the job here, putting the batten cars in. Thought you'd like to see how it goes. Where's the one I'm working on? There it is. Okay, so here's the sail as it is now. And then what happens is these guys that we saw earlier, they have a flat side which has the screw holes in it at 90 degrees to the surface, and then flip it over, it's got another one exactly here. There are screw holes in this side, but you see they're just the exits of this one. So you've got to make sure you put it in the right way around, although I guess technically there's no wrong way of putting it in, but in it goes into the pocket. Line up the holes. We then get some of our little plates, little screws. Again, try and do it all one-handed. And then we get this guy, shove it in there, wind that in till it meets what's going on. Okay, 3 of those on that side, and then 3 more on the other side, and we've got a batten pocket. So that's the last one going in now. Although this lowest batten won't, lowest batten pocket won't have a batten in it, it's still a strong connection point between the sail and the mast. So we still want it on because it's going to help the lower part of the sail, which won't be being used, but it still needs to be secured to the boat. Otherwise, a big wave's going to completely throw it all the way out the front of the boom bag there. So I'm gonna get those on now, and then what I'm thinking is the weather is so perfect right now that I'm not going to wait whilst I cut all the battens, fit all the battens. I'm just going to grab the head and I'm going to start hoisting it, get the boom bag out of the way because it's got its lazy jacks on right now. I take the lazy jacks back off and I'm just going to hoist it and start putting it on, and I'll literally cut the battens as they're going as it's going up, because any of it up on the boom and done is better than it all perfectly set out on the deck and then the wind comes and I can't do any of it. So I suspect what will happen is it will be completely fine, it'll hoist up, all done, drop it down, happy days. But I'd rather that it's just ongoing and happening, and then if the wind starts to come up, I've already got the battens, which are the top 4 or 5 connections, is most of the battens we're going to be using. It's the battens at the tricky bit, and that's why also I'm not going to put the battens in until it's already up on the boom, because it's a lot easier to connect the batten cars to the batten ends without the batten in, without that tension and without it part of the trigonometry of the sail. It's easier to already have connected it and then shove the batten in than it, because these battens aren't all like just happily parallel to the bottom of the sail. They're at a raked angle. So by the time this is on, if you remember the way the old sail looked, even when it's completely down, there's a good percentage of it still showing because it's got all these angled battens in it. And if you're trying to put battens and batten ends onto batten cars, you have to play with all of the tensions that are created in that part of the sail. So we'll just get it connected, then we'll shove the battens in afterwards. So I think we're only 10 minutes off now, finishing this, double check, cup of tea. The cup of tea thing is kind of like a joke, but it's also a very serious point. I used to smoke, and when I worked with Sir Robert Knox-Johnson, the few bits I did with him on his Open 60 before it became my Open 60 and I took it around the world, before I gave it him back and it became his Open 60 again, he did say the panic cigarette is a fantastic thing, that, you know, you're going to do like some really tricky docking maneuver in a crowded port, loads of wind, minimal crew. It's good to have a cigarette first. Now, he used to joke and say, oh, because you can never find your lighter during the emergency. But the point was actually, it's good to just have, how long does a cigarette take? Like 4 or 5 minutes? Just to have that amount of time to just stand and do nothing apart from think about what comes next. Although I don't smoke now, a cup of tea stood looking at this and looking at the mast might reveal, oh, you've forgotten this. Oh, you thought of that. What about this? You didn't think about this. Hey, look at that. You know, just things that otherwise would pass you by. If you get too close into the problem, you can end up missing, you miss the wood for the trees sort of thing, you know? So, so I'm going to do that. So yeah, finish this batten pocket, and then we've got all this old elastic on here. So I'll cut that off and I'll put the elastics which we've got at the top of the sail, and then I'll bring up the spool of elastic that I have ready to throw on new lashings as they go in. Yeah, I think it's going to be all right. The thing that is the one that will be a major psychological mastery for me, or milestone rather for me, will be when the clew of the sail and the first reef are lashed up on the end of the boom, because it's very heavy lift to get that up there. The entire sail is going to virtually need to be up, and it'll lift most of the volume of the sail, and then I'll have a long line that runs from the clew out to the end of the boom, and I'll use that to pull the clew up and then put the clew lashing on, and then I can start to relax. There's a number of points of this. It's like, oh, just get that done, just get that done. But overall, I'm enjoying it. Like, you know, otherwise, as a racer, if that's what you are, you know, it's like you can get really frustrated. This is the upper 10, right? This is like, it's not, I don't really mind being socked in by fog and having this active echo that tells me when I'm being scanned, having the AIS, having what's the thing called at the top of the mast? Is it active echo as well? No, it's called, what's it called? There's a thing at the top of the mast which increases the radar signature of this boat. Plus it's got these little tube radar reflectors, but it's got an electronic radar reflector up there, the name of which completely escapes me right now. But anyway, so it's amplifying our radar signal. Are we doing fog signals? No. Now that's something we could do, and it's an idea too. I've got to say, it's been a long time since I've been on any boat anywhere that does fog signals apart from IMO boats. Can we do fog signals? Yes, we can. We have a horn, we have a pump up horn, we have a blow horn, and we have an app on the iPhone that plugs into the speakers from the SSB, which then can play the sound out on deck, okay? Or actually, I could just get my wireless speaker and play it from there, right? So it wouldn't be very loud, but it would be something. But I'm not got my headphones in, which I normally have when I do this kind of job. I am working, but I'm also listening to what's going on around me and keep looking around me. And we have a speed of 0 right now. We're doing like 1 knot or something. So we are the sitting duck, but we are electronically amplifying our radar profile. We are scanning 4 radars. We have our AIS on, and if we need to, we can pump up our radar and get that on and then see what's going on. We have VHF to communicate with other people. We have our GMDSS if we want to send a signal. We've got PLBs, EPIRBs, we've got SARTs, we've got any acronym you can think of. But the best one right now is listening. And so far, I think we're safe. So we're in the middle of the Atlantic, we're socked in by fog, we've got no wind whatsoever. But yeah, the job keeps me interested right now. And I think this is interacting with and mastering, sort of, the biggest sail on the boat that you don't normally do this with. It'll be a good sort of point to get to, like, yep, done that, change the mainsail at sea, you know, that's huge. The next thing will be getting on to using the kites. I have a lot of experience running kites on boats like this and Volvo 60, so I'm not too worried about that. But you know, full main off and main on, like, not done that before, not on my own. Right, let me finish this and stop talking, cut all these elastics off and put new ones on, and then it's time for a cup of tea and thinking about what, oh, this was easy, thinking about what comes next and if we made any mistakes. All right, so it's happening. So, had my cup of tea and had a look at a few things and realized, let's have a see. Okay, yeah, realized that there was a little problem which I had overlooked. When they took the batten boxes off the sail, they did it obviously when the battens were in it. It's not like the battens were off and, you know, they were doing other things and they thought, oh, let's get the batten boxes off. What they did is they pulled the batten, they undid all the screws on the batten boxes, pulled the batten boxes out and pulled the battens out with them. And how do I know that? Because these lashings at the end, which are what goes in here and lashes around and around and around and secures the back end of the batten, they were all still in and still tied, which was just heaps of fun, as you can imagine, undoing 16 small line lashings that had been in there for 12 years. Just had the best time doing that. So note to sailmakers, if you're going to bother keeping the sail, don't leave the lashings in the back. It might be quick to get the battens out of the forward end. See, what they did is they took off the batten box from here, and that was super easy. Screw, 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 and then the pressure would release, out would come the batten box, reach in, get the batten, pull the batten out. Okay, cool. But then you leave the lashings in the other end. If you're going to bother to keep the sail, take the lashings out the other end. The other thing which becomes obvious is that the sail has been left in like a sailmaker's flake. So it's concertinaed backwards and forwards, but it's a triangle, right? It's a right angle triangle, give or take. And when you compress it down, you can do three kinds of flake. You can zigzag either side. As it's coming down, the apex is coming down, the top's coming down towards the foot. You can zigzag either side equally. You can zigzag so that one side of it stacks on top of itself and the other side has got a long zigzag. Or you can zigzag so the back edge stacks on top of itself and the front edge has a long zigzag. What sailmakers will tend to do is put zigzags on either side. So the apex comes down in the center and either side zigzags in, flakes in, so that each tape, the luff tape here and the leech tape back there, equally go through the most minimal turns it can whilst it's in storage. When we're using them on boats, obviously what we do is we do like a foredeck flake where the front edge, the luff, comes down on top of itself and the back gets zigzagged down. You always do that for mainsails really, because it's going to be coming, this front edge is going up a straight stick. So I don't want it to be like way over there and then have to pull it to right over here so that I can get it up the sail, because right now that's about 10 feet difference. If you've got your mates here in your team, no problem at all. You can just unflake it, reflake it, Bob's your badger. You're probably not even thinking to do this at sea. The other kind of flake is when you flake with the front edge, the luff has got the longest possible zigzag and the leech comes down in a stack, and you do that when you're stacking head saws, which you're then going to put inside the boat, because a bit like this, head saw will go into a deck bag like this, and then it's going to go inside the boat when you're racing, and it's going to be folded up a couple times. If you stacked the luff on top of itself, the leech will have the maximum possible waviness to it, and the battens, the hard battens which are in the back of the head saw, will be stacked overlapping each other for the maximum possible length possible, and you won't be able to fold the bag over. The battens on the back of most, you know, like 40-odd foot racers, the battens are only a couple meters long, if that really. So if you stack them all on top of each other by stacking the leech flaked on top of itself and the luff all nice and loose, then when you get it inside the boat, you'll be able to fold the bag up to its minimal length for storage, probably up in the forepeak of the boat. the bowman will then have to have some assistance from the mid bow or the mastman, or how it works on your boat, to pull it out of that storage leech flake and pull it all forward to get it underneath the pre-feeder on the bow of the boat before it goes up the foil. So leech flake for storage of headsails inside the boat, luff flake if you're about to reuse the sail or it's being stored on deck or it's a mainsail, and then either side luff and leech equally zigzag down for sailmakers. Okay, so got that. So it's completely flat right now. It's perfect time to be doing this, and you know, this maneuver was designed to be done here. If we had started taking off the mainsail, we would be just about, it took me 6 hours to get the mainsail off. Okay, and Brickton in the bag. So if we'd been starting that, we would be, about now, we'd just have the first sail off and we wouldn't have started anything else. As it is, we've done all of our work working out our battens, we've got the entire sail ready, the elastics are on, everything else is in, and we're ready to go up. And I would imagine this is not going to last much more than 6 hours. So we should have time to do the little bits and bobs and check everything out, make sure it's all good before we get wind. So the halyard now will start to pull the sail up, quite obviously. It's a 3-part halyard, and before can you see that from that angle? Before I lashed it on, the lashing, you can see it's got 3 parts to it. It's terminated on top of that block, and then it goes up and over a sheave at the top of the mast, down and through this block again, up and over another sheave at the mast that then goes inside the mast and comes down to the halyard winch. It's a 300-foot halyard just inside the mast. So the thing I got to do now is I got to cut battens as and when it comes up. I've decided to do that to reduce the slog of putting this up, because otherwise just grind. What I'll be able to do is grind, cut a batten, fit a batten, grind some more, cut a batten, fit a batten. It should divide the work into sort of 7 equal slots, and that's going to be better for me. Obviously, you have to look after. So I still got to be awake all night, sleeping 20 minutes at a go, even though we're just lolling around in fog. The only thing I may do is I may turn the boat, and we're actually heading roughly in the right direction. We've got this gentle swell, but just in a while the boat gets into a kind of harmonic with it, and it really rolls, and I don't want to be slipping and sliding on sails and trying to work at the mast. So I may put the engine on now, and this is going to take a couple of hours. Just motor gently at an angle which is good for the swell. If you were doing this in a race and you had to do it, you'd have to have the head sails and you need a little bit more wind. Or you just make sure that you're clipped on, you're very, very aware of it. So that's the other way of doing it. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Hopefully now, as the halyard's pulling it, it'll naturally just pull the sail up off the deck and up to the front of the mast. I don't want to be, the good thing is, see, without the battens in, these are very flexible and movable, and you can get them into position. If I was trying to push this out to deal with the tension that's going to be in the leech, it'd be very hard to easily fit it into the car on the mast. So this is the right way to do it. Then we'll get the battens, slop them in, we know the lengths, we know which battens we're going to cut. I've got the hacksaw here. I decided not to use the latex gloves because I've only got 2 pairs left, and I do need to, if I need to do any epoxy repairs, I want them for that. And this is only a little cut through anyway. My Haribo Star Mix tub is doing a great job of just holding bits and bobs of equipment together, although I have to say I'm a little low on sugar, and really every time I open the tub to get like something out, like a screw or a bolt, I get this massive whoosh of Haribo. And the most irritating thing is that those tubs were only £2. That's like $1.50 in the US, or no, sorry, $3 in the US. 2 pounds, 1,000 grams of Haribo right now would have gone down very, very well. But not to be beaten, I have got some brownies. So I'm going to have a bit of that to keep the sugar. The sugar helps with good judgments and being constantly aware of what's going on. And it's a good excuse basically to eat brownies. So let's get funky with the brownie. The other thing I may do now, and obviously it's YouTube so I can't play it on YouTube, is I may put on the Essential Bill Withers, which is my go-to certain periods of your life. There's certain albums that you listen to and you enjoy, and you here, let's get that little ridge out of the way for you. There you go, we can have a proper chat now. Certain albums, like I can remember working on a super yacht in Fort Lauderdale. I had to do loads of work in the bilges, and it was like the greatest hits of Johnny Cash just went round and round and round and round. The first time I had one of these boats and I was going down the Atlantic, I think I've told that story before, I had no other, basically the bag which had all of the videos. Oh no, there's a lot of brownie on the floor now. The bag which had all of the magazines, the videos, the films, the CDs, all that stuff basically got forgotten, and ended up with one Nina Simone album. And thank God she's an amazing singer, and she was able to not send me crazy 30 days at sea from La Rochelle to Cape Town. Was it 30 or 35? I can't remember now. I didn't go mad, but you get, I know guys that have been in the forces having to do long marches and really hard things, digging things, and you just put one thing on and then you just keep on that thing, and it just sends you into this hypnotic state where you just get stuff done. This boat, this project, the last month, the essential Bill Withers. Basically, if that's on, I'm not thinking, I'm just doing. So, Brownie, Bill Withers. Just eating all the brownie off the floor.